The warning lights flashed red across Day One's control panel. His small ship, the Morning Star, had picked up something strange. A beacon signal came from the planet below, but that made no sense. This planet was marked as forbidden. No one was supposed to be here. Day One leaned forward in his pilot seat, studying the readings. He was a salvager, someone who searched for old broken ships and sold their parts. It was lonely work, but it paid well enough. He had been traveling for 3 weeks without finding anything useful. Now this signal appeared from nowhere. The planet looked dead from space. Gray rocks covered most of its surface. No green plants, no blue water, just endless wasteland. The galactic maps called it Zareth 9. Every spacefaring species knew to avoid it. Dangerous radiation, they said. Unstable ground, they claimed. But Day One had learned that forbidden places often hid valuable secrets. He checked his scanners again. The beacon was definitely Vorian technology. The Vorians were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Their ships used advanced systems that could sell for a fortune. They were recorded, but why would a Vorian beacon be on a death world? Day One made his decision. He had come too far to turn back now. His fingers moved across the controls, and the Morning Star descended through the thin atmosphere. The ship shook as it cut through the air. Warning alarms kept beeping, but he ignored them. He had flown through worse conditions before. The landing was rough. Dust and rocks scattered everywhere as his ship touched down. Through the window, Day One could see the source of the beacon. A massive Vorian transport ship lay half buried in the ground. It was at least 10 times bigger than his vessel. The metal hull was scorched black, and one wing had been torn completely off. Day One suited up in his protective gear and grabbed his medical kit. Old habits from his military days never died. He had been a medic once, before he left Earth and became a salvager. The airlock hissed open, and he stepped onto the alien planet. The crashed ship loomed above him like a metal mountain. He walked carefully around the wreckage, looking for an entrance. Finally, he found a cargo bay door hanging partially open. He squeezed through the gap and entered the dark interior. His helmet light cut through the darkness. The inside of the ship was a mess. Equipment lay scattered everywhere. Broken cables hung from the ceiling, but what caught his attention were the rows of large metal pods lining both walls. They looked like prison cells, or maybe medical chambers. Day One approached the first pod. Through the small window, he could see a body inside. It was definitely not Vorian. The creature was covered in gray fur with dark stripes. Its face was long like a wolf, but it stood on 2 legs like a person. One of the she-wolves, he realized. He had heard stories about them but never seen one. He moved to the next pod. Another body. The next one, too. His stomach turned. These creatures had been left here to die. But then his scanner beeped. Life signs. Weak, but present. He rushed along the row of pods, checking each one. 7 were still alive. Day One found the control panel and studied it carefully. The Vorian language was hard to read, but he knew enough technical terms. His fingers worked quickly, overriding the safety locks. Air hissed as the first pod opened. The she-wolf inside collapsed onto the floor. She was thin, too thin. Her ribs showed through her fur. But her eyes opened, and they fixed on Day One with fierce intelligence. Then she moved, faster than he expected. She lunged at him with a snarl. Claws extended. Day One fell backward. The she-wolf landed on top of him, her claws at his throat. But then her strength failed. She collapsed on him, unconscious. Her body was burning with fever. He carefully pushed her aside and opened the other pods one by one. 6 more she-wolves fell out, all in similar condition. Starving, dehydrated, barely alive. He worked quickly, checking their vital signs with his medical scanner. They needed food, water, and medicine immediately. While treating them, Day One found a computer terminal that still had power. He accessed the ship's logs and began reading. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The she-wolves were bred as soldiers for the Vorian Empire. They were designed to be perfect warriors, stronger than normal Vorians, faster healing, able to work together like a pack of hunting animals. The Empire had created them to win wars, but something had gone wrong. The she-wolves had started thinking for themselves. They questioned orders. During one battle, they had refused to kill enemy civilians. They had shown mercy when their commanders wanted destruction. The Vorian High Command decided that warriors who thought too much were dangerous, so they arranged an accident. A training mission gone wrong, the official report said. The transport carrying the she-wolves crashed on Zareth 9. No survivors. The Empire sealed the planet and forbade anyone from investigating. The she-wolves were left to die slowly in their pods, abandoned by the people they had served. Day One sat back, anger rising in his chest. He had seen many terrible things in his life, but this betrayal was especially cruel. These warriors had been punished for having compassion, for being more than just killing machines. He looked at the 7 unconscious she-wolves lying on the floor. His ship could barely support himself, let alone 8 more beings. The smart choice was to leave them, or maybe report their location to the authorities and let someone else deal with it. But Day One had never been good at making smart choices. These creatures had been left to die because they chose mercy over blind obedience. In a strange way, that made them more human than most humans he knew. He started carrying supplies from his ship: food, water, medical equipment, whatever he could spare. He set up IV drips to get fluids into their bodies. He cleaned their wounds and injected them with antibiotics. It would take days, maybe weeks, to get them healthy again. As he worked, one of the she-wolves stirred. She was young, with lighter fur than the others. Her eyes opened and focused on him. Fear showed in those eyes, but also confusion. She tried to speak, but only a weak sound came out. "It's okay," Day One said softly, even though he knew she probably could not understand him. "You're safe now. I'm going to help you." The young she-wolf watched him for a moment, then closed her eyes again. But this time, she seemed to relax slightly. Day One was attaching another IV bag when his ship's alarm suddenly blared across his communicator. He grabbed it quickly. "What is it, Jiwan?" he asked his ship's AI. "Captain, we have a problem," the artificial voice responded. 3 Vorian patrol cruisers just dropped out of hyperspace above the planet. They're heading directly toward our position. Day One felt ice in his stomach. Someone had known he was coming. This was not a coincidence. The Vorians did not want witnesses to their crime. He looked at the 7 unconscious she-wolves. Then, at his ship outside. Then, at the massive crashed transport that would never fly again. They were trapped, and the enemy was coming. Day One ran to the crashed transport's control room. His hands flew across the dusty panels, trying to find any system that still worked. Behind him, the she-wolves lay unconscious in the cargo bay. Above him, 3 warships were descending through the atmosphere. "Jiwan, how much time do I have?" he asked into his communicator. "Approximately 12 minutes, until the Vorian ships enter weapons range," his AI responded. "Captain, I recommend immediate evacuation. The Morningstar can break orbit before they lock onto us. And leave them here to die?" Day One shook his head, even though the AI could not see him. "No. We need another option." He finally found a panel that responded to his touch. The transport's backup power was still functioning at minimal levels. Not enough to fly, but maybe enough for something else. He pulled up the ship's defensive systems and weapon controls. A sound behind him made Day One spin around. The largest she-wolf stood in the doorway. It was the one who had attacked him earlier. She was swaying on her feet, clearly still weak, but her eyes burned with determination. She growled something in the Vorian language. "I don't understand." Day One said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. But we have a bigger problem right now. Your people are coming, and I don't think they're here to rescue you. The she-wolf's ears flattened against her head. She understood the word Vorian, at least. She moved closer, looking at the control panels. Her clawed finger pointed at the display, showing 3 ships approaching. Yes, Day One confirmed. 3 warships. They'll be here soon. The she-wolf made a decision. She pushed past him and began working the controls. Her movements were shaky, but purposeful. She brought up schematics of the transport ship, then pointed at several locations. It took Day One a moment to understand what she was showing him. The transport still had functional weapons. Not many, and not at full power, but some. The she-wolf was suggesting they fight. That's insane, Day One muttered. But then again, everything about this situation was insane. All right. What's your name? The she-wolf looked at him with those fierce golden eyes. She tapped her chest and made a sound. Hana, Day One repeated. I'm Day One. Nice to meet you. Even if the timing is terrible. Hana's mouth opened slightly, showing sharp teeth. Despite the language barrier, they found ways to communicate. Pointing, gestures, and shared understanding of ship systems helped bridge the gap. In the cargo bay, another she-wolf was waking up. This one was younger, with lighter gray fur. She pushed herself up on shaking arms and looked around in confusion. Then she saw Day One and Hana working together in the control room. She stumbled toward them. Mireille, Hana said, pointing at the younger she-wolf. Then she barked a series of commands in their language. Mireille looked surprised, but nodded. She went back to the cargo bay and began waking the others. 8 minutes, Jiwan warned through the communicator. Captain, the Vorian ships are deploying landing craft. 2 dropships heading to the surface, with approximately 20 soldiers each. Day One relayed this to Hana using the display screen. Her response was to activate the transport's external cameras. Together, they watched as the 2 Vorian dropships descended toward the crash site. More she-wolves were entering the control room now, all of them weak and unsteady. Hana spoke to them rapidly. Some looked at Day One with suspicion, others with curiosity. One of them, who had distinctive black stripes on her face, moved to another control panel and began working. She seemed to understand the ship's systems. That's Sora, Hana said, one of the few words Day One understood. Sora appeared to be some kind of technical expert. She brought up tactical displays and started planning defensive positions. The Vorian dropships landed about 200 meters from the crashed transport. Soldiers in combat armor emerged, weapons ready. Through the cameras, Day One watched them form into 2 groups and begin advancing. Hana growled and pointed at the screen. She made shooting motions with her hands. The message was clear. These soldiers were not here to help. They were here to kill everyone and destroy the evidence. Sora activated the transport's remaining weapons. 2 plasma turrets on the upper hull still had power. She aimed them at the advancing soldiers. But Hana stopped her. Shaking her head, she had a different plan. Using gestures, Hana explained her strategy. Let the soldiers get close. Make them think the transport was defenseless. Then, strike hard and fast. The she-wolves would leave the ship and attack from unexpected angles, while Day One and Sora provided covering fire from the weapon systems. It was risky, but Day One had to admit it was clever. You're a tactical genius, he told Hana. She did not understand the words, but she seemed to understand his approving tone. The she-wolves prepared for battle. Despite their weakened condition, they moved with purpose. Another she-wolf, who Hana identified as Yuna, found a storage locker containing their combat gear. The equipment had been left behind, probably considered unimportant. The she-wolves put on light armor and grabbed whatever weapons they could find. Day One watched them transform. Minutes ago, they had been dying prisoners. Now, they looked like the warriors they were bred to be. But there was something different about them. They moved as a coordinated unit, but they also checked on each other, helped those still too weak, and communicated constantly. They were not just soldiers following orders. They were a pack taking care of each other. The Vorian soldiers reached the transport's perimeter. They spread out, surrounding the crash site. Their commander gave orders through a loudspeaker, demanding that anyone inside surrender immediately. Hana looked at Day One. He nodded. She raised her hand, then dropped it sharply. The she-wolves exploded into action. They burst from hidden exits in the transport's hull, moving faster than the Vorian soldiers expected. Even weakened, they were incredibly quick. They hit the enemy formation from 3 sides at once. Day One and Sora opened fire with the plasma turrets. The weapons were slow and not very accurate, but they did not need to hit anyone. They just needed to create chaos and divide the enemy's attention. The Vorians had expected an easy cleanup mission. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives. The she-wolves used tactics the soldiers had never seen before. They did not charge straight into battle like typical Vorian warriors. Instead, they used the rocky terrain for cover, coordinated their attacks, and struck from unexpected angles. Mireille, despite being one of the youngest, proved to be incredibly brave. She drew fire away from her packmates, then disappeared behind rocks before the soldiers could target her properly. Yuna used her engineering knowledge to disable enemy equipment, causing weapons to jam and communicators to fail. The battle lasted only 5 minutes, but it was brutal. The Vorian soldiers retreated in disorder, leaving behind weapons and wounded. Several did not retreat at all. The she-wolves had shown them that even half-starved and betrayed, they were still the most dangerous warriors the Empire had ever created. But Hana did not let her pack celebrate. She barked orders, and the she-wolves quickly gathered the abandoned Vorian weapons and equipment. They dragged everything back to the transport. Sora took captured communicators and began listening to enemy transmissions. What she heard made her ears flatten in alarm. She showed Hana the communicator, and Hana's expression darkened. She turned to Day One and drew a finger across her throat, then pointed upward. Day One understood. The commander in orbit was going to destroy the entire site from space. G1, confirm, he said into his communicator. Confirmed, Captain, his AI replied. The 3 cruisers are charging orbital weapons. Estimated time to bombardment: 6 minutes. The blast radius will encompass your entire position. 6 minutes to evacuate everyone or die. Day One ran calculations in his head. His ship could hold everyone, barely, but there was a problem. The she-wolves were looking at the transport's data core. Hana was pointing at it insistently. Through pantomime and quick gestures, she made him understand. The data core contained all the evidence of what the Vorians had done. The orders for abandonment. The reasons why. Everything. Without it, no one would believe their story. The Empire would brand them as criminals, and no one would know the truth. But retrieving the data core would take at least 3 minutes, maybe 4. They would never make it. Day One looked at the 7 she-wolves watching him. They had every reason to hate all other species, to think only of their own survival. But they wanted the evidence. They wanted the truth known, even if it cost them their lives. He made his decision. G1, prep the Morning Star for emergency departure. I'm sending the she-wolves to you now. And you, Captain? I'm getting that data core. Someone has to make sure the truth survives. Hana growled in protest. She grabbed his arm, shaking her head violently. The other she-wolves joined in, their meaning clear. The pack did not abandon its members. Day One tried to explain they did not have time, but Hana refused to listen. She turned to Yuna and spoke rapidly. Yuna's eyes widened. Then she nodded. She ran to examine both ships. 4 minutes to orbital strike, G1 warned. Yuna called out from where she was working. She was pointing at the Morning Star's engine, then at the transport's power core. She was gesturing wildly, explaining something. Sora understood first. Her eyes lit up, and she joined Yuna. Together, they began explaining a plan that seemed impossible. They wanted to connect the two ships' power systems, use Day One's ship to jumpstart the transport's engines. That can't work, Day One protested. Different technologies, different specifications, but Yuna was already moving, pulling cables and tools from both ships. Hana pushed Day One toward the controls. Her message was clear. Trust them, or die, arguing. The orbital weapons were charging above them. Time was running out. Yuna worked like her life depended on it, because it did. Her clawed hands moved with precision, connecting cables between the two ships. Day One watched in amazement as she bridged systems that were never meant to work together. She was making up solutions as she went, using parts in ways they were not designed for. 3 minutes, Ji-won announced calmly through the communicator. The AI never panicked, which somehow made the countdown feel even more terrifying. Day One helped Yuna wherever he could, holding tools and running cables. She would point at something, and he would grab it. They did not share a language, but they understood each other through action. His human flexibility combined with her Vorian engineering knowledge created something neither species could achieve alone. Meanwhile, the other she-wolves were not idle. Hana organized them into a defensive perimeter. The Vorian soldiers had not given up. A third dropship was descending, bringing reinforcements determined to finish what they started. Sora calculated firing angles for the transport's weapons. Mireille helped the weakest she-wolves into the transport's cargo hold, preparing for launch. One she-wolf caught Day One's attention. She was smaller than the others, with pale gray fur. Her name was Nari, and she had been in the worst condition of all. She had barely regained consciousness, and now she was trying to help but could barely stand. Nari stumbled and fell. Day One caught her before she hit the ground. Through his scanner, he could see internal injuries that the medical pod had not fully healed. She needed surgery, real medical care, not just emergency treatment, but there was no time. He laid her down gently and pulled out his medical kit. His hands moved on instinct, falling back on years of training. He gave her pain medication and started sealing the worst internal bleeding with medical foam, a human invention that Vorian medicine did not use. Nari's eyes focused on him. She seemed confused. Why was this strange alien helping her? Day One smiled at her. Naur's eyes reprace. Nari's eyes focused on him. Nari's eyes focused on him. I know it hurts, he said softly, even though she could not understand his words. But you're going to be okay. I promise. She made a small sound, somewhere between a whimper and a sigh. Her paw reached up and touched his hand. It was a tiny gesture, but it carried enormous meaning. Trust. Despite everything she had been through, despite being betrayed by those she served, this young warrior was choosing to trust a stranger. Day One felt something break inside his chest. These were not monsters. They were people who had been used and thrown away. They deserved better. 2 minutes. Ji-won's voice cut through his thoughts. Yuna shouted something. Day One ran back to the engine room. She had completed the connections, but now she was showing him a problem. The power transfer would work, but it would destroy his ship's engine in the process. The Morning Star would never fly again. Day One did not hesitate. Do it. Yuna looked at him, her golden eyes searching his face. She seemed to be asking if he was sure. He was sacrificing his livelihood, his home, everything he owned. For them, do it, he repeated firmly. Yuna nodded once, then threw the switch. Power surged through the makeshift connections. Sparks flew as incompatible systems screamed in protest. But slowly, incredibly, the transport's engines began to hum. Lights flickered on throughout the ship. Systems that had been dead for weeks started coming back to life. The third Vorian dropship landed, and soldiers poured out. They were not trying to be tactical anymore. They were simply rushing the transport, desperate to stop whatever was happening inside. Hana and Sora coordinated the defense. The plasma turrets fired in controlled bursts, not trying to kill, but to slow the enemy down. The she-wolves used captured Vorian weapons to keep the soldiers at bay. They were buying time, every second precious. 1 minute. Day One ran to the pilot's seat. He had never flown a Vorian transport before, but controls were controls. Yuna joined him, pointing at different panels and explaining their functions through gestures. Sora abandoned the weapons and took the tactical station. Hana gathered the rest of the pack into the cargo hold and sealed the doors. The engines were responding, but barely. They had 30% power at most. It would have to be enough. 30 seconds. The orbital weapons fired. Through the external cameras, Day One could see 3 brilliant beams of energy descending from space. They were aimed at the crash site, enough firepower to turn everything within a kilometer into molten glass. "Hold on to something!" Day One shouted. He fired the engines at full thrust. The transport lurched into the air, climbing slowly, too slowly. The ship was heavy and damaged, and its engines were running on borrowed power. Behind them, the Vorian soldiers scattered and ran. Even they knew what was coming. The energy beams hit the ground with apocalyptic force. The entire surface exploded into fire and molten rock. The shockwave caught the transport's tail section, spinning the ship violently. Alarms screamed. Systems failed across the board, but they were airborne, climbing through the atmosphere on pure momentum and desperate hope. Day One fought the controls, trying to keep the ship stable. Beside him, Yuna worked her panel frantically, rerouting power from life support to engines, from weapons to thrusters. They broke through the upper atmosphere still spinning. Day One could see the 3 Vorian cruisers ahead of them, blocking their escape route. The warships were massive, each one 100 times larger than the crippled transport. But Sora had been studying their positions. She pulled up a navigation plot that looked impossible. She wanted to fly between the cruisers, using their own bulk to shield the transport from weapons fire. One mistake would mean collision and instant death. Day One looked at the plot, then at Sora. She met his eyes with complete confidence. She had calculated every angle, every timing. She trusted him to fly it. "All right," he said. "Let's show them what a pack can do." He angled the transport toward the gap between the first 2 cruisers. The Vorian commander must have thought they were going to surrender, because for a few crucial seconds, the warships held their fire. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. The transport shot through the gap with meters to spare on each side. The cruisers tried to adjust, but they were too big and too slow. Day One corkscrewed the transport through a series of evasive maneuvers that made Yuna howl in what might have been either terror or excitement. They cleared the blockade, but they were not safe yet. The cruisers were turning to pursue, and the transport could not outrun them. Its engines were already failing, pushed beyond their limits. Then Jiwan's voice came over the communicator. "Captain, I have detected additional vessels approaching. Military configuration. They're broadcasting on human military frequencies." A new ship appeared on the scanners. It was smaller than the Vorian cruisers, but sleek and fast. A human destroyer. Its hull marked with Earth's unified fleet symbols. More ships were jumping into the system behind it. The lead destroyer opened a communication channel. A voice spoke in Korean, and Day One's heart leaped at hearing his native language. Unknown transport. "This is Commander Bauman, of the Soul's Pride. We received your distress signal and evidence package. We're here to help. Transmit your flight plan, and we'll cover your approach." Day One had sent out the evidence. He looked at Sora, who was trying very hard to look innocent. She must have accessed the transport's communications during the battle and broadcast everything to any ship in range. The evidence of Vorian crimes, the recording of the abandonment, all of it. Soul's Pride. This is Captain Day One. I have 7 Vorian warriors aboard who need immediate medical attention and political asylum. They have evidence of war crimes and a planned attack on human colonies. There was a pause. Day One could imagine the confusion on the bridge of the destroyer. Vorian warriors seeking human help? It was unheard of. They were 1% of the plane. There was said, "Confirmed, Captain. Medical teams standing by. But I need you to know. This is going to create an incident. The Vorian cruisers are demanding we hand you over. They're claiming you're criminals. They're lying, Commander. These warriors were left to die because they refused to commit atrocities. They're the good ones." Another pause, longer this time. Then Commander Bauman's voice came back, harder and more determined. "Then they'll find sanctuary with us. Sol's Pride is moving to intercept. All ships. Defensive formation. Nobody touches that transport." The human fleet moved between the crippled transport and the Vorian cruisers. It was not much of a fleet. Just 5 destroyers and a few support ships. Against 3 heavy cruisers, they would lose a straight fight. But they were not backing down. The Vorian commander issued an ultimatum. "Return the she-wolves or face military action." Commander Bauman responded by powering up weapons and shields. The Vorians could either back down or start a war. For a long moment, the two fleets faced each other in tense silence. Then the Vorian cruisers began to withdraw. They were not authorized to start an interstellar war over one transport, but their commander sent a final message, broadcast on all frequencies. "This is not over. Those criminals will face justice. Anyone who harbors them becomes an enemy of the Vorian Empire." Day One guided the failing transport into the Sol's Pride's hangar bay. The moment they landed, human medical teams swarmed aboard. The she-wolves reacted with alarm at first. But Hana kept them calm. She had learned something important. This strange human had kept his word. Maybe others of his species would too. Medics loaded Nari onto a stretcher first. She reached out toward Day One as they carried her away. He took her paw and squeezed it gently. "You're safe now," he promised. "All of you are safe." Commander Bauman met them in the hangar, flanked by security officers. He was a tall man, with gray hair and hard eyes that had seen too much combat. He looked at the 7 she-wolves. Then at Day One. "You've started something big, Captain. The Vorian Empire is screaming for blood. They want these warriors executed as traitors. The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session." "Good," Day One said. "Let them talk. Because we have evidence of everything. War crimes, illegal abandonment, planned attacks on civilian colonies. Let the Empire explain that to the galaxy." Bauman studied him for a moment, then smiled slightly. "You've got guts. I'll give you that. But this isn't going to be easy. These warriors," he gestured at the she-wolves, "they're aliens. Enemy combatants. My superiors are going to ask why we should risk war to protect them." Hana stepped forward. She looked at Commander Bauman with those fierce, golden eyes, then did something unexpected. She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect. She spoke in broken galactic common, words she had clearly struggled to learn. "We serve wrong masters. They make us kill. We say no. They try kill us." She pointed at Day One. "Human help. First time. Anyone help. Please. No, send back." The hangar fell silent. Even the medical teams stopped what they were doing. Here was a warrior bred for battle, feared across the galaxy, asking for mercy in a language she barely knew. Commander Bauman looked at Day One. "Did you teach her that?" "No, sir." Bauman turned back to Hana. "Do you understand what asylum means? If we protect you, the Vorian Empire becomes our enemy. There might be war." Hana nodded slowly. "Understand. We fight for you. Protect you. Like human, protect us. Fair trade." "It's not about trade," Day One interjected. "It's about doing what's right." "Spoken like someone who's never had to justify his decisions to politicians," Bauman said dryly. but there was approval in his eyes. All right. Medical care first, questions later. We'll sort out the politics somehow. As medical teams led the she-wolves away, Hana paused. She looked back at Day One and spoke in her own language. Sora translated quietly. She says, "You are packed now." Pack does not forget. Day One felt something warm spread through his chest. He had lost his ship, probably his career, and possibly started an interstellar incident. But looking at these 7 warriors who had been thrown away and left to die, he felt no regret. He had done the human thing. He had helped someone who needed it. Everything else would work itself out somehow. The medical bay of the Soul's Pride was not designed for Vorian physiology, but the human doctors did their best. Day One watched through the observation window as they worked on Nari. Her injuries were severe, worse than he had initially thought. But the doctors were determined, and they had one advantage. Day One's field notes, from treating the she-wolves on the planet. Commander Bauman stood beside him, arms crossed, watching the same scene. "My medical officer says you probably saved her life with that foam treatment. She would have bled out during the escape otherwise." "I just did what needed doing," Day One replied. "That seems to be a habit of yours." Bauman turned to face him. "I've been reading the evidence files your wolf friend transmitted. Do you understand what you've uncovered?" The Vorian Empire was planning a coordinated strike on 12 human colony worlds. Billions of people would have died. Day One felt the weight of those words. He had gone looking for salvage and found something much bigger. The she-wolves discovered this? According to the logs, they were ordered to participate in the planning. When they realized the targets were civilian populations, they refused. That's when the High Command decided to eliminate them. Bauman shook his head. The Empire trained them to be perfect warriors, but they couldn't train out their conscience. Bauman. In another part of the medical bay, Hana sat quietly while a doctor treated wounds on her back. The scarring suggested she had been injured many times over the years. She endured the treatment without complaint, her eyes constantly scanning the room, assessing threats out of habit. Mireille sat near her, recovering quickly thanks to her youth. She was watching everything with curious eyes, especially the human crew members who passed by. Most looked at the she-wolves with a mixture of fear and fascination. None had ever seen Vorian warriors up close before. "We need to move them soon," Bauman said. The Vorian ambassador to the Galactic Council has already filed formal complaints. They're demanding extradition. They claim the she-wolves are war criminals who murdered their fellow soldiers. That's a lie. The she-wolves only fought in self-defense. I know. You know. But politics isn't about truth, Captain. It's about power. Bauman pulled up a data tablet and showed Day One the news feeds. The story was spreading across the galaxy. "The Vorians are spinning this hard. They're saying you kidnapped military prisoners. They're saying the evidence is fabricated." W'd. Day One felt anger rising. "Then, we show everyone the truth. We present the evidence publicly. Let the galaxy decide who's lying. It's not that simple. Half the Galactic Council is afraid of the Vorian military. They won't want to take sides." Bauman paused. "There's another problem. Intelligence officers want to interrogate the she-wolves. They want to know everything about Vorian military capabilities, tactics, and weaknesses." "No." Day One's response was immediate and firm. "They're not intelligence assets. They're refugees. I agree, but I don't make those decisions." Bauman looked troubled. "There are already people calling them enemy combatants, saying they should be held in military detention. The political situation is complicated." Before Day One could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Bauman's communicator lit up with urgent messages. His expression darkened as he read them. The Vorian battle fleet just arrived at the edge of human space. 15 capital ships. They're demanding we surrender the she-wolves immediately, or they'll consider it an act of war. The 2 men rushed to the bridge. The main display showed the Vorian fleet arrayed in attack formation at the border. It was an overwhelming show of force. The human fleet in this sector could not hope to match it. The Vorian Supreme General appeared on the communication screen. He was an old warrior with scarred features and cold eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. Human vessel, soul's pride. You are harboring terrorists and criminals of the Vorian Empire. Release them immediately or face military action. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Commander Bauman stood tall. Supreme General, those warriors have requested asylum. We have evidence of illegal abandonment and war crimes committed by Vorian High Command. We will not surrender refugees to certain execution. The internal matters of the Vorian Empire are not your concern. Your refusal will be considered an act of war. Is that what humanity wants? War with the Empire? The transmission cut off. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Vorian Empire had never been defeated in battle. Their military was legendary. If war came, human colonies would burn. Bauman turned to his crew. Get me Earth Command. Now. While the commander dealt with the political crisis, Day One returned to the medical bay. He found Hana standing at the window, looking at the Vorian fleet on the display screens. The other she-wolves had gathered around her. They were having a quiet conversation in their own language. When Day One approached, they fell silent. Hana turned to him and spoke slowly in Galactic Common. We go back. No want war for humans. We trade ourselves. For peace. No, Day One said immediately. That's not happening. Must happen. You save us. We not let you die for us. Hana's expression was determined. This is right thing. The right thing, Day One said firmly, is not letting them win. You were punished for having a conscience, for refusing to kill innocents. If we send you back, we're saying that was wrong. We're saying mercy deserves death. Mireille spoke up, her comment better than Hana's. But humans will die. War will kill many. We are only 7. Why risk so much for so few? Day One looked at each of them in turn. These warriors, bred for battle, were willing to sacrifice themselves to save the species that had shown them kindness. It was the most human thing he had ever witnessed from non-humans. Because that's what being human means, he said. We don't calculate worth based on numbers. 1 life or 1,000,000. Each one matters. You matter. And if the Vorian Empire wants war because we refuse to execute refugees, then they're the ones starting it, not us. Sora had been silent, but now she spoke. Her comment was technical but clear. Human captain, explain something. Why you help? First time on planet, you alone. You could leave, save yourself, but you stay. Why? Day One thought about his answer carefully. Where I come from, on Earth, there's an old saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It means treat people the way you want to be treated. If I was abandoned and left to die, I would hope someone would help me. So, when I found you, I had to help. It's that simple. The she-wolves looked at each other, processing this philosophy. In Vorian culture, strength was everything. Helping the weak was seen as wasteful. But here was this human, explaining a completely different way of thinking. Yuna spoke in their language, translated by Sora. She says, human way is strange, but maybe strange is good. Vorian way made us weapons. Human way makes us people. An announcement came over the ship's intercom. All hands, prepare for visitors. The Galactic Council has sent a delegation to investigate the situation. Refugee interview teams are boarding now. Hana's ears flattened. What is interview? They'll ask you questions, Day One explained. About what happened. About the Vorian orders. About everything. You'll need to tell them the truth. Truth. Hana seemed to taste the word. Vorians not like truth. Truth is weakness. For humans, truth is strength. It's how we fight enemies we can't beat with weapons. Day one paused. But I need to warn you. The interviewers will try to trick you. They'll ask the same questions different ways. They'll try to make you confused or angry. It's a test. The she-wolves exchanged worried looks. They were warriors, not diplomats. Fighting, they understood. But this political battle was foreign territory. Over the next hours, delegation teams interviewed each she-wolf separately. Day one was not allowed to be present, but he waited outside the interview rooms. The interrogators were aggressive, trying to break the she-wolves' stories. When Mireille came out of her interview, she was shaking. Tears streaked down her furred face. Day one moved to comfort her. But she pulled away. They say we are killers. They say we murdered good soldiers. They say we lie about everything. Her voice broke. They not believe. They think we are monsters. You're not monsters, Day one said gently. And not everyone thinks that. Some people are just afraid. They should be afraid, Mireille said bitterly. We are weapons. That is what we made for. No. Day one knelt down to her eye level. You were made to be weapons. But you chose to be something else. You chose conscience over obedience. That's not a weapon, Mireille. That's a person making a moral choice. She looked at him with those golden eyes, so young and so hurt. I not understand human words sometimes. What is moral? It means knowing the difference between right and wrong. And choosing right, even when it costs you everything. Mireille thought about this. Slowly, she nodded. Then, we are moral. We choose right. We lose everything. But we still choose right. Exactly, Day one said, smiling. You're more human than a lot of humans I've met. The interviews continued for days. The she-wolves stuck to their story because it was the truth. Slowly, some of the interrogators began to believe them. The evidence was too detailed to be fabricated. The emotional testimony was too raw to be acting. But then the political situation worsened. The Vorian Supreme General made a public broadcast to the entire galaxy. The human species has chosen war. They harbor our criminals and refuse lawful requests for their return. This aggression will be answered with force. We call upon all loyal species of the galaxy to stand with the Empire against human lawlessness. Several species immediately pledged support to the Vorians. Others remained neutral, afraid to take sides. Only a handful spoke in favor of humanity. Commander Bauman called a meeting with Day one and the she-wolves. His expression was grim. Earth Command has made a decision. They will not surrender you to the Vorians, but they're offering you a choice. He looked directly at Hana. We can relocate you to a secret facility where you'll be safe but hidden. Or, he paused, you can request formal citizenship on Earth. It would make you, legally, human. Any attack on you would be an attack on our people. The she-wolves were stunned into silence. Citizenship? They were aliens, enemies, former soldiers of an empire now threatening war. Why would humans offer them this? Hana found her voice first. Why? Why you do this? Make war for us? Because, Bauman said. And for the first time, Day one heard emotion in the commander's voice. Your evidence shows the Vorians were planning to kill billions of our civilians. You saved us by refusing those orders. The way I see it, we owe you. More than that, you've proven something important. You've shown that honor and conscience aren't exclusive to any one species. He pulled out official documents. These are citizenship applications, if you want them. But understand, this will make you targets. The Vorian Empire will never stop hunting you. Sora spoke up. We are already targets. Already hunted. Question is, where we stand when they come. Exactly, Day one said. So, where do you stand? The she-wolves looked at each other. They spoke quietly in their own language, debating. Finally, Hana stepped forward. She took the citizenship papers in her clawed hand. "We stand with humans," she said clearly. "Humans teach us new way. Show us life beyond war. We choose this. We choose Earth." One by one, the other she-wolves came forward and took their papers. Even young Nari, still recovering from surgery, insisted on signing her name with shaking hands. As they completed the documents, alarms blared again. The Vorian fleet was moving. They were crossing into human space. The war had begun. Commander Bauman looked at the tactical display, showing dozens of enemy ships advancing. Then he looked at the 7 she-wolves, now legally human citizens, and at Daewon, who had started this whole impossible situation. "Well," he said with a grim smile, "I hope you all are worth a war." Hana straightened to her full height, dignity radiating from her scarred form. "Yes," Daewon confirmed. "That's the human way. We protect each other, no matter the cost." The Vorian battle fleet moved through human space like a predator that had never known defeat. 15 capital ships, each one a fortress of weapons and shields. Against them, humanity had scattered defensive fleets, good pilots, and desperate courage. It was not enough. News of the invasion spread across the galaxy. Most species watched and waited, unwilling to intervene. The Vorian Empire was too powerful, too dangerous to oppose. Better to stay neutral and survive. But on Earth, something unexpected was happening. Ambassador Kyung, an elderly diplomat who had served humanity for 50 years, watched the she-wolves on the news feeds. She saw their interviews, heard their stories, and made a decision. She called for an emergency session of Earth's government. These warriors were punished for showing mercy, she told the assembled leaders. They refused to kill our civilians, knowing it would cost them everything. Now they've become our citizens, and an empire wants them dead. What we do next will define humanity for generations. The debate was fierce. Some argued that 7 aliens were not worth a war. Others insisted that abandoning new citizens would make Earth's word meaningless. The she-wolves watched the broadcasts, seeing humans argue over their fate. Mireille turned to Daewon, who had stayed with them throughout everything. "Humans fight with words. Very strange. That's how we solve problems without killing each other," Daewon explained. "Usually, Wraith. But Vorians come with ships, not words." "No," Daewon agreed. "But words can change who stands with us." He was right. Ambassador Kyung's speech was broadcast across the galaxy. Her words were simple, but powerful. She spoke of a principle older than spaceflight, that protecting the weak from the strong was the foundation of civilization itself, that any species claiming to be civilized must be willing to defend that principle. 3 smaller species announced they would stand with humanity. Then 5 more. They were not military powers, but their support meant something. The galaxy was watching, and the Vorian Empire's reputation was cracking. Meanwhile, the Vorian fleet reached the outer colonies. The battle for human space had begun. Commander Bauman's fleet was outnumbered 3-1. His ships were fast and well commanded, but they could not match Vorian firepower. The Soul's Pride took damage in the first engagement, and casualties mounted. In the medical bay, Hana watched the battle reports with growing frustration. Her pack was trapped on this ship, while humans died defending them. It went against everything she understood about honor and pack loyalty. She gathered the other she-wolves and spoke in their language. The conversation was intense. Finally, she approached Commander Bauman on the bridge. "We must fight," she declared. "We know Vorian tactics. We know their ships. Let us help." Bauman looked skeptical. "You're not trained for space combat." "No. But we know how Vorians think, how they plan. Their weakness," Hana pointed at the tactical display. "They fight like pack of wolves. Strong Alpha in center. Others follow, but if Alpha confused, pack becomes chaos." Sora stepped forward, her tactical mind already working. Vorian commanders trained together. They think same way. Predictable. Human ships move different. Think different. This confused them. But you need someone who knows what they expect. Bauman considered this. He was losing the battle slowly but surely. He needed an advantage. Any advantage. What are you proposing? Let us board their ships, Hana said. We know security codes, patrol patterns, ship layouts. We get inside, cause chaos, make Alpha confused. Your ships attack, while they distracted. That's suicide. You'll be outnumbered 100-1. Hana's fierce smile showed her teeth. Vorians made us to fight many enemies. We are very good at what we do. And now we fight for something real. For Pac. For home. Day One had been listening from his station. Commander, I can pilot the insertion. I know Vorian transponder codes. We can get close before they realize what's happening. You're a civilian, Captain Day One. I can't order you into combat. Good thing I'm volunteering then. Bauman looked at them all. 7 alien warriors barely recovered from near death, and 1 stubborn salvager. It was the worst special operations team he had ever seen. It was also his only chance. Fine. But you're taking a squad of Marines with you for support. The insertion team prepared quickly. The she-wolves checked weapons with practiced efficiency. Human Marines watched them nervously. Still, not quite comfortable with alien predators as allies. But when Hana demonstrated her skill by field stripping a plasma rifle blindfolded in 30 seconds, the Marines started to look impressed. Yuna modified a human dropship with Vorian identification codes. It would read as a friendly transport for a few crucial minutes. That was all they needed. Young Nari insisted on joining the mission despite her injuries. Pac stays together, she said simply. And no one could argue with that. Day One piloted the dropship toward the Vorian flagship, the massive dreadnought at the center of their formation. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart was racing. He had done crazy things before, but flying directly at an enemy flagship took a special kind of insanity. Vorian Command. This is Medical Transport Alpha 7 requesting docking clearance. He transmitted in perfect Vorian military code. There was a pause. Then, Alpha 7, we have no scheduled medical transports. Explain. Sora had anticipated this. She transmitted a burst of data. Fabricated medical emergency codes pulled from the captured transports database. Multiple casualties from human biological weapon. Requesting immediate quarantine and treatment. The mention of biological weapons got an instant response. The Vorians were terrified of such things. The flagship's hangar bay opened, and they were cleared to dock. We're in, Day One whispered. The dropship landed in the hangar. Vorian security teams were waiting, weapons ready but not raised. They expected wounded soldiers, not an attack. The she-wolves emerged first. For a moment, the Vorian guards simply stared in shock. These were supposed to be dead, executed traitors. What were they doing here? That moment of confusion was all Hana needed. She moved like lightning, her pack flowing with her in perfect coordination. They had spent years training together, fighting together. The Vorian guards never had a chance. The human Marines followed, securing the hangar while the she-wolves led the way deeper into the ship. They moved through corridors they had walked 1,000 times before, when this had been their empire, their fleet. But now they were invaders, in what used to be home. Alarms began blaring. The flagship's crew realized they were under attack from within. Vorian soldiers rushed to intercept. But they had never fought she-wolves who were truly free. These warriors were not following orders. They were fighting for chosen family, for a home they had been offered, for a chance at a life beyond war. Mireille led a team to the engine room. Yuna worked her technical magic, sabotaging systems in ways that would take hours to repair. Sora reached the tactical center and began feeding false information to the other ships, creating confusion in the Vorian formation. Hana fought her way to the bridge with Day One and a squad of Marines. The flagship's commander was Supreme General Korthon himself. the warrior who had ordered the she-wolf's execution. He stood surrounded by his personal guard, rage contorting his features. "Traitors!" he roared. "You were made to serve the Empire." "We are not property," Hana said coldly. "We are people. You made us fight. You made us kill. But you could not make us monsters. We chose different way. Then you chose death." The fight on the bridge was brutal. Korthan's guards were elite warriors, the best the Empire had, but they fought for pride and duty. The she-wolves fought for something stronger, the right to live free. When Korthan fell, wounded but alive, Hana stood over him with her weapon ready. One shot would end him. One shot would avenge everything he had done to her pack, but she lowered her weapon. "No," she said. "Killing you proves nothing. You want me to be weapon. I choose to be person. Person. With conscience." She turned to the Vorian bridge crew. "War is over. Your general lives because I show mercy. Something he never showed us. Tell this to your Empire. Tell them she-wolves are not weapons anymore. We are free, and we choose humans." Day One helped secure the prisoners, while Sora took control of the flagship's communications. She broadcast to the entire Vorian fleet. Their commander was captured. Their flagship was taken. And it had been done by the very warriors they had tried to destroy. The Vorian fleet fell into chaos. Some ships wanted to attack immediately. Others argued for retreat. The careful formation broke apart as ship commanders argued over who was in charge now. Commander Bauman seized the opportunity. His human fleet struck hard and fast, targeting the confused Vorian ships. It was not a crushing victory, but it did not need to be. The Vorian fleet withdrew, their perfect military machine broken by doubt and internal conflict. But the she-wolves' actions had done something more important than winning one battle. They had exposed a fracture in the Vorian Empire itself. On the Vorian homeworld, the elders watched what had happened. These ancient leaders had been pushed aside by the military faction years ago. They had watched in silence as their empire became nothing but endless war. But now they saw warriors showing mercy, choosing honor over vengeance. It reminded them of old Vorian values, before the militarists had taken control. The elders called for Supreme General Korthan to be tried for his crimes. They demanded answers about the illegal abandonment, the planned attacks on civilians, the betrayal of loyal warriors. The empire split between those who supported the old military way and those who wanted reform. Meanwhile, on Earth, the she-wolves became unexpected heroes. People who had feared them now saw them as symbols of redemption and change. They were warriors who chose peace, predators who chose mercy. 1 year later, things had changed dramatically. The Vorian Empire was rebuilding under the Elders' guidance. They had formally apologized for the attempted genocide and agreed to peace terms. More importantly, they had changed their laws. She-wolves were no longer considered property. Hundreds of them chose to leave military service, and many came to Earth, seeking the freedom their sisters had found. Day One stood in a park in Seoul, watching she-wolf children play with human children. It was a strange sight, but a beautiful one. The young ones did not carry the scars of war. They were learning to be people first, warriors second. Hana joined him, her official Earth citizenship papers in hand. She had been studying human philosophy and law, preparing to help other she-wolves adjust to their new lives. "I have question," she said, her common much improved after a year of practice. "What changed Galaxy? Was it evidence? Was it battles? Was it politics?" Day One thought about everything that had happened. The rescue, the chase, the war, the peace. It had been a cascade of impossible events. "I think it was simpler than all that," he said finally. "One person chose to help another person, even when it made no sense, even when it was dangerous, even when everyone said it was stupid." Hana considered this. Humans have strange way of thinking. You see enemy, You think maybe future friend. You see weapon. You think maybe person. You see 7 dying soldiers. You think worth saving even if it starts war. Is it that different from what you did? Daewon asked. You saw civilians who were supposed to be enemies. You chose not to kill them. That cost you everything. Yes. But we learned that from humans. From you. Hana smiled, showing teeth that no longer looked threatening. Vorian Empire made us weapons. But humans showed us we could be more. Showed us that strongest choice is not always to fight. Sometimes strongest choice is to show mercy. Nari ran past them, chasing a soccer ball with a group of human children. She was laughing. A sound that would have been impossible for her a year ago. Mireille and Yuna were teaching a class on Vorian engineering to human students. Sora had joined Earth's Defense Academy as a tactics instructor. They were building new lives. Daewon's communicator chimed. He read the message and his expression became serious. What is it? Hana asked. Another group of she-wolves has been found. Abandoned on a prison planet. Left to die years ago. They sent a distress call. Hana's ears perked up. How many? 15. She looked at Daewon, and he looked back at her. The same thought passed between them. More warriors who needed rescue. More victims of the Empire's cruelty. More people who deserved a chance at freedom. So, Hana said, her smile becoming fierce and joyful. When do we leave? Daewon smiled back. Give me an hour to prep a ship. As they walked toward the spaceport, other she-wolves joined them. Mireille, Sora, Yuna, all of them ready. Word had spread through their community instantly. Pack members needed help. They would answer. Human volunteers appeared too. Former Marines, pilots, medics. People who had seen what was possible when species chose cooperation over conflict. They wanted to be part of something bigger. Ambassador Kyung met them at the spaceport. She handed Daewon official documents. Earth government approved this mission. You're authorized to offer asylum to any she-wolves who want it. We're also sending humanitarian aid and medical support. She smiled. Apparently, rescuing abandoned warriors and starting political incidents is now official government policy. Strange times, Daewon said. The best times, Kyung corrected. We're proving that civilization means something. That mercy isn't weakness. That every life has value. She looked at the mixed group of humans and she-wolves preparing for the rescue mission. You started something, Captain. A movement. Other species are beginning to question their treatment of engineered soldiers, of created beings. You've changed how the galaxy thinks about rights and personhood. Hana stepped forward. We not do this for glory or politics. We do, because Pack does not abandon Pack. Human teach us this. Now, we teach others. As their rescue ship launched toward the stars, Daewon thought about how everything had started. One salvager finding one beacon. One choice to help, instead of walking away. Such a small thing. Really. But small things could change the galaxy. Behind them, Earth spun in space, a planet that had taken in warriors and made them citizens. A world that had risked war to defend the principle that mercy mattered. Ahead of them, 15 abandoned she-wolves waited, probably thinking they had been forgotten. They would learn something important today. They would learn that someone was coming, that they mattered, that the Pack never abandons its own, and they would learn what it meant to be human, not as a species, but as a choice. A choice to help, a choice to show mercy, a choice to believe that enemies could become family. It was the human way. And it was spreading across the stars, one rescued warrior at a time.